When my ex-fiancée appeared on my doorstep at midnight, I realized that ghosts from the past don't always stay buried. Especially when they're crying and begging for your help. I flinched as the doorbell shattered the silence of my empty house. The digital clock on my microwave read 11:30. My hand froze on the shower knob as I listened, wondering if I'd imagined it. The day had been brutal. 12 hours at the firm reviewing contracts that all blurred together by the end. My eyes stung from staring at my computer screen, and all I wanted was a hot shower before collapsing into bed. The doorbell rang again, longer this time, more insistent. Who the hell? I muttered, wrapping a towel around my waist and padding down the stairs. Condensation from the bathroom had left my skin damp and goosebumps rose on my arms as I approached the door. I peered through the peephole and my heart stopped. 5 years. 5 years since I'd seen that face. I'd finally buried that ghost, or so I thought. But there she was, Brooke, with mascara running down her cheeks in dark rivers, her eyes puffy and red, her shoulders trembling. I opened the door but kept my body firmly in the frame, blocking the entrance. Matt. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying for hours. I'm sorry. Her eyes darted past me into the warmth of the house. Can I come in? Please? Something inside me broke at the sound of her voice. The same voice that once promised forever, the same voice that told me she'd found someone else 2 weeks before our wedding. I shouldn't let her in. Every rational part of my brain screamed to close the door. But another part, the part that remembered how easily she could break me with just a look, stepped aside. Brooke slipped past me, her perfume achingly familiar, and sat on the edge of my couch like she might shatter if she leaned back. I stayed by the door, keeping my distance, watching as she tried to find words. I remembered, suddenly and violently, how much power she once had over me. Sometimes the scariest moment isn't when the past returns, but when the present meets it face to face. And that moment arrived when my wife walked into the room. I heard the soft padding of slippered feet on the stairs before I saw her. Jessica appeared in the doorway, her hair piled messily on top of her head, wearing my old university t-shirt that hung to her knees. Matt? Who was at the... Her words died as she noticed Brooke huddled on our couch. The transformation on her face was instant, shock, then disgust, before she forced herself into a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. I hadn't had time to explain who Brooke was. Jessica knew the outline of my history with Brooke, but not the details of my suffering, not the nights I'd spent staring at the ceiling wondering what I'd done wrong. Well, Jessica's voice sliced through the silence. This is unexpected. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. What brings you here so late? Brooke, isn't it? Brooke looked at me imploringly, then back to Jessica. I need Matt's help with something. It's personal. Jessica's eyebrow arched. Personal? I wasn't aware my husband still handled your personal matters. The tension was so thick I could almost taste it, metallic and bitter on my tongue. Brooke ignored Jessica, turning back to me. I have nowhere else to go, Matt. Jessica laughed, a harsh, bitter sound I'd never heard from her before. You can't seriously expect Matt to drop everything because you've decided to reappear. I could see it in Jessica's eyes. She wasn't just angry. She felt threatened. 5 years of marriage, and suddenly she was looking at me like I was a stranger capable of betrayal. Matt doesn't owe you anything, Jessica said, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. I just need 5 minutes with him, Brooke pleaded. Alone. Jessica's eyes widened as they snapped to mine. I felt the weight of a choice settling on my shoulders, heavy and suffocating. One moment of hesitation cost me everything. In 5 seconds of indecision, I lost 5 years of happiness, and now stood amidst the ruins of my own life. I felt caught between 2 hurricanes, both waiting to see which way I would bend. Jessica stared at me, her eyes narrowing with each passing second. Are you actually considering letting her stay? Jessica's voice was dangerously quiet. I looked at Brooke, mascara still streaking her face, shoulders hunched forward like she was trying to disappear into herself. I couldn't just throw her out like this, could I? Not when she looked so broken. Jess, I just need a minute to think this through. The words hung in the air like a betrayal. Jessica's face hardened, hurt flashing across her features before settling into something cold and distant. Without another word, she turned and marched upstairs, each footstep echoing through our home like a countdown. The bedroom door slammed with such force that picture frames rattled on the walls. I turned back to Brooke. You have 5 minutes. Talk. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I know I don't deserve anything from you. Damn right you don't, I muttered. I left him, she said, her voice barely audible. Travis. I thought I was happy at first, but then he started drinking and he got violent. She looked broken, nothing like the confident Brooke I remembered. I recalled Travis, the friend who showed up at our engagement party, all smiles and congratulations while he plotted behind my back. What did you expect coming here, Brooke? That I'd just welcome you back with open arms? No, she whispered. I know you'll never forgive me. But I really have nowhere else to go. She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. No one else I can trust. Trust. The word felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I'd trusted her once, and she'd carved out my heart with surgical precision. The sound of a suitcase dragging down the stairs was louder than any words could have been. My wife was walking out of our life, and I couldn't bring myself to stop her. A heavy thud from upstairs broke the tense silence, our bedroom door slamming open again. Jessica appeared at the top of the stairs, pulling a large suitcase behind her, the wheels thumping against each step like a funeral drum. What are you doing? I asked, though I already knew the answer. What does it look like? Jessica's voice was eerily calm. I'm leaving. She reached the bottom of the stairs and looked from me to Brooke and back again. You clearly have unfinished business here. She gestured toward Brooke without looking at her. Jess, this isn't. I'm not going to sit here and watch you play hero for her. Jessica cut me off, her voice cracking slightly despite her composed exterior. I started to protest, but she silenced me with a raised hand. I spent years loving you, trusting you, she said. And you can't even choose me over the woman who once destroyed you. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I refuse to be second place in my own marriage. Brooke sat silently on the couch, tears streaming down her face, her eyes fixed on the floor. Jess, please just give me a chance to explain. No, she said. You've already made your choice. She gripped the handle of her suitcase tightly, her knuckles turning white. You made it the moment you hesitated. Jessica turned, yanked open the front door and walked out. The door slammed behind her with a finality that knocked the breath from my lungs. I stood frozen, staring at the door that had just closed behind my wife. In the space of 20 minutes, my world had imploded. I remained rooted to the spot, feeling the pieces of my life crumbling around me, unable to move as everything I loved disappeared into the night. Irony is cruel. I lost my wife over a woman I had no intention of taking back. Now I needed to get rid of the ghost who had already destroyed enough. I stood motionless, staring at the door Jessica had just closed. Brooke remained on the couch, quietly sobbing. The house suddenly felt emptier, as if all its warmth had been sucked out through the front door with my wife. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked loudly in the silence, marking each second of my shattered life with mechanical precision. I turned back to Brooke, my voice harder than I intended. You need to go. She looked at me as if she couldn't comprehend what I'd said, her eyes wide and red-rimmed. Matt, please, she whispered. I have nowhere to go. She looked vulnerable, barely holding herself together, but I pushed away the pity rising in my chest. This woman had cost me everything twice now. I said, you need to go. My voice was firmer this time, leaving no room for negotiation. Brooke began to cry harder, her shoulders shaking with each sob. Just one night, Matt. Please. I'm scared. Scared of what? I demanded. Travis, she whispered. He might be looking for me. He's dangerous when he's angry. I hesitated, noticing real fear in her eyes. Was she manipulating me again, or was she telling the truth? The possibility that she was in actual danger made my resolve falter. Fine, I said finally. One night. The guest room. And tomorrow you're gone. She nodded quickly, relief washing over her face. Thank you. I couldn't bear to look at her anymore. I walked into the kitchen to escape, to collect my thoughts. I poured myself a glass of water with trembling hands, spilling some on the counter. As I leaned against the sink, I thought of Jessica. Her smile, her laugh, the way she always knew when I needed space and when I needed comfort. And I had just thrown it all away. For what? For the ghost of a woman who had already proven she couldn't be trusted? Sometimes the cruelest words come from our lips not when we hate someone, but when we still remember what it was like to love them. I heard Brooke's soft footsteps before I saw her. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking lost and nervous, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For everything I did. For showing up like this. You're the only person good enough to even give me a chance. I laughed bitterly, gripping my water glass tighter. If I were good, I'd be with my wife right now. The glass slammed against the counter with more force than I intended. Brooke flinched at the sound, taking a small step back. Don't, I said, my voice shaking with anger. Don't come back here and pretend you care. You don't get to do that. Brooke took a step toward me, hand outstretched as if to touch my arm, but I moved away. The kitchen felt too small suddenly, the walls closing in. I really am scared, Matt, she insisted. I wouldn't have come if I had anyone else. The desperation in her voice sounded genuine, but I'd been fooled before. I'd heard her make promises she never intended to keep, heard her say forever, when she meant, until something better comes along. You can stay tonight, I said, my voice flat. Tomorrow morning you're gone. I'll help you find a hotel or something, but you can't stay here. She nodded, whispering a quiet thank you. I didn't respond. I brushed past her, heading upstairs to the bedroom I'd shared with Jessica until an hour ago. The room still smelled like her, lavender and vanilla from the candle she always lit before bed. That was the hardest part. I sat on the edge of the bed, finally letting the weight of everything crash down on me. The sheets were still rumpled from where Jessica had been reading before the doorbell rang. Before our world fell apart. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept thinking about Jessica, about Brooke, and the question that haunted me: why did I let her in? When I saw him in the coffee shop, smiling and relaxed, I realized one of them was lying. And deep down I already knew who. Dawn broke with painful brightness through my bedroom window. I hadn't drawn the curtains last night. That had always been Jessica's job. I dragged myself downstairs after hours of staring at the ceiling, only to find Brooke in the kitchen wearing one of my old hoodies. She attempted a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I hope you don't mind. I was cold. I ignored her, making a beeline for the coffee maker. My hands moved on autopilot, measuring grounds, pouring water, simple tasks to focus on instead of the exhaustion weighing me down. Matt, Brooke said softly, will you listen to me? It's not just about Travis. It's too late, I replied coldly, keeping my back to her. You made your choice 5 years ago. Travis made me feel like I didn't have a choice, she said, her voice barely audible. He said things, threatened things if I didn't leave with him. Part of me wanted to believe her, the part that remembered the way her laugh used to make my heart soar. But another part, the part that had been lying awake all night, remained skeptical. Your fear doesn't excuse what you did to me, I said, finally turning to face her. You could have told me. We could have figured it out together. Brooke's eyes dropped to the floor. I was scared. Stay here until you figure out where to go, I said. But we're not friends. We're not anything. Later I walked out of the house, needing fresh air and distance. I found myself at a coffee shop a few blocks away, and that's when I saw him. Travis sitting at a corner table, scrolling through his phone. He looked too calm, too confident for the monster Brooke had described. No signs of a man spiraling out of control with drink and violence. Before I could think better of it, I approached his table. Travis. He looked up, recognition dawning slowly. Matt? Well, isn't this interesting? His smile was cold. Let me guess, Brooke found you? She said you threatened her, I said, my voice low. Travis laughed, shaking his head. Brooke always was good at spinning stories. He leaned forward. People don't change, Matt. When things get tough, she uses people. Always has. I left with more questions than answers, doubt creeping in about everything Brooke had told me. She sat amidst my memories, flipping through photographs of my happiness that she herself had destroyed twice. Now I knew for certain she needed to go. I returned home to find the front door slightly ajar. A chill ran down my spine as I pushed it open, listening for any sound inside. Brooke? I called out, stepping cautiously into the entryway. As I moved into the living room, I found her sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by old photographs that I'd stored in boxes in the hall closet. She held a picture of Jessica and me from our honeymoon in Greece, her fingers tracing the outline of our smiling faces. I didn't mean to snoop, she said without looking up. I just couldn't help myself. The boxes had been neatly packed away, hidden beneath winter coats and old shoes. She'd had to search for them. This wasn't an accidental discovery. What do you really want from me, Brooke? I asked, my voice tired. She finally looked up, her eyes rimmed red. I thought I needed your help, but now I see I've just ruined everything again. Travis's words echoed in my head. People don't change. I'd been a fool to believe her, to risk everything for someone who had proven time and again that she couldn't be trusted. You need to go, I said. I can't do this again. Where will I go? Her voice cracked. I don't know, I replied. But you can't stay here. She sat silently for a moment before beginning to gather the scattered photos. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to arrange them in neat piles, but kept dropping them. The next few hours passed in a haze. I watched as Brooke packed her small bag, her movements slow and deliberate, as if prolonging each moment. She paused at the door, seemingly on the verge of saying something, but I cut her off before she could speak. "Don't," I said. "Just go." She nodded once, opened the door and walked out, disappearing into the shadows of the street. After she left, I found a photo of Jessica and me from last Christmas that had fallen under the couch. As I held it, my phone buzzed with a message from Jessica. "Coming tomorrow to get the rest of my things. Please don't be there." I understood the truth as I read her final message. Sometimes, to truly let go of something, you first have to lose everything you've been holding on to. I spent the night on the couch trying to prepare myself for what was coming. The thought of watching Jessica pack up her life, our life, was unbearable. But I couldn't bear the thought of her coming to an empty house either. In the end, I decided to honor her request. I scribbled a note and left it on the kitchen counter. "I won't be here. I'm sorry for everything." The morning air was crisp as I left the house, not looking back. I had no destination in mind, just an urgent need to be anywhere but there. I drove aimlessly through the city, muscle memory eventually guiding me to the park where Jessica and I often spent Sunday afternoons. I found myself on our bench, the one beneath the old oak tree where she'd spread out a picnic just a few months into our relationship, proudly displaying homemade sandwiches that were terrible but that I'd eaten every bite of. My phone vibrated in my pocket. "Jessica, I'm here. Just wanted you to know." I typed back, "Okay. Take your time." The wind rustled through the leaves overhead, a few early autumn stragglers breaking free and spiraling down around me. An old man walked his dog along the path, nodding at me as he passed. Life continuing as if my world hadn't just collapsed. Time stretched and compressed. I don't know how long I sat there before my phone buzzed again. "I'm finished." Left my keys on the counter. "Take care of yourself, Matt." The words felt so final, so complete. A period at the end of a 5-year sentence. But I knew I deserved this ending. "You too, Jess." "I'm sorry," I replied, knowing how inadequate those words were. I sat on that bench until the sky turned golden, then deep blue. I had lost everything, Brooke, Jessica, the life I'd built, but maybe this was the only way I could finally understand who I was without them. Without the ghost of a love that haunted me, without the comfort of a marriage I'd taken for granted. The smallest plant on the windowsill survived despite everything. Its leaves were turning green again after watering, and in this simple miracle, I saw a faint glimmer of hope for myself. I returned to a quiet, empty house. The hook by the door where Jessica's keys had always hung was bare, accusing in its emptiness. A faint scent of lavender, her favorite, still lingered in the air. I walked into the living room, half expecting to see her curled up on the couch with a book as she'd been countless evenings before. The silence felt wrong, like a familiar song played in the wrong key. I found my note on the counter, untouched. I crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. In the kitchen I made coffee, the simple routine grounding me in the present. 1 cup, not 2. The mechanical motions of measuring, pouring, and waiting gave my hands something to do while my mind tried to adjust to this new reality. I sat at the dining table, staring at the empty chair across from me. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Brooke, thank you for last night. I'm sorry for all the pain I caused you. I hope you find happiness, Matt. You deserve it." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say between us. As I set my phone down, I noticed the small succulent on the windowsill, the one Jessica had bought at the farmer's market last spring. It had started to wilt, its leaves drooping, but it wasn't dead yet. I filled a small cup with water and poured it carefully around the base of the plant, watching as the soil darkened and absorbed the moisture. Within minutes, the leaves seemed to perk up slightly, reaching toward the sunlight streaming through the window. I gathered the few things Jessica had left behind. A paperback novel on the nightstand, a pair of earrings in the bathroom, the Christmas photo that had fallen under the couch. I placed them in a box and set it on the top shelf of the closet. When I returned to the kitchen, the plant's leaves already looked greener. For the first time in what felt like forever, I allowed myself a small, uncertain smile. Sometimes life strips everything away so you can finally see what remains, what's truly yours. And sometimes that's enough to start again.